Okay. Was it over the weekend or was it on Friday? Business mogul Narendra Ravael raised something very interesting that kicked off a conversation on the presidential term limits. This is what he had to say.
I wish that we have this president for at least for 25 years. Mali angini iko miaka mingi sana. So if we have this ichi itabatlisa.
Willis, let's start us off on this. Is this a conversation that we should be having? And there's a lot of jostling right now in 2027. You have your own political arithmetic that you think is the winning formula. Yes. Is this a conversation we should have right now?
I think the conversation that we should be having right now is whether Kenyans should continue with William Ruto until 2027, not whether we should add him 25 more years as promoted by, Narendra. By the Narendra. Because I say this because Kuru elucidated to you the 7 challenges of the country, the state of the nation today. And it's a problem every day. You wake up every morning, it's new problems, failures of government. Kenyans are poorer today than they were yesterday. And they are guaranteed they'll be poorer tomorrow than they are today. So your quality of life keeps depreciating every single day. Only fat cats like Narendra, who seems to be providing services to government, are having a field day. And that is why he can stand up and speak the way he's speaking, that, look here, this should go on for 25 years, irrespective of our constitution. But it is right, he's entitled to his opinion, but that is not where the mind of Kenyans are. What Kenyans should be focusing on is for how long are we going to continue with this pain of Kenya Kwanza? And can we have a conversation about the people's agenda? What can Kenya Kwanza and the other parliamentary parties do to improve the quality of life that Kenyans are living? That should be the primary concern today as we speak. And even as in our political party, Safina Party, as led by Jimmy Wanjigi, our primary focus is purely on the economic agenda, the people's agenda. And we've identified why Kenya Kwanza is failing and what is our promise to the people. It's about a focus of the economy from demand-side economics to supply-side economics. And at the right time, we'll elucidate this further to Kenyans. Our problem is not even about revenue. Our problem is expenditure as a country. If you are spending 70%, now almost 80% of your revenue on debt finance, you are spending 30% on salaries, you are spending 35 shillings on operations, you are spending 15% to counties, you are falling behind every day. And yet, you're also running a large government that is not frugal. You're obscene in your spending. So our problem is a spending problem, not a revenue problem. But Kenya Kwanza thinks our problem is a revenue problem, and every day, and I assure you, the finance bill is coming in a few months' time. You are going to see more and more taxes being increased. You are going to see more levies and charges by government agents and departments being increased.
Okay.
And that will not be a solution to our problem. It will be more and more pain. The cow is dry. There is no more milk that you are going to get out of this cow, however much you try to milk it.
Okay. Ekuru, even as we have this conversation, there's still a lot of political arithmetic going on in 2027. But where should our priority be right now? As you respond to what Narendra mentioned. We allow everyone to just give their views regardless of what the views are. But what are your thoughts on
Trevor?
Yes.
I want to change the narrative and look at the reason why we have presidential term limits. History tells us that, and looking at our constitution, we've borrowed our presidential system from the US, the American Constitution, which was enacted way back in 1787. And before 1940, no American president served more than 2 terms. Mm-hmm. And it was not by constitution, it was just by practice. Mm-hmm. George Washington, Jefferson felt that after 8 years, I've done enough, I'm fatigued, I've got ill health, and so it's time to go. And then came the war, the Second World War, and Franklin Roosevelt became president in 1940. And he went on to serve for 4 terms. Unfortunately, in his 4th term, he only served for 54 days. But then the Americans started asking and questioning, how can we have somebody serve for so long? And that is when the Americans went for what they call the 22nd Amendment in 1947 and enacted a law to limit the term of the presidency. And why did they do this? The first reason is to avoid what we call a monarchy system. Mm-hmm. There has to be a difference between a president and a monarch. Mm-hmm. Monarchs can be perpetual. Presidents must have limits. Why? To ensure that they tame what they call obsolete power, tame corruption. And in reality, most presidents, after serving 8 years, are already very fatigued. Mm-hmm. And if they've not achieved what they were supposed to achieve in 8 years, then it is not possible that they can achieve it
even if you want them more time. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, they say, if you want to measure a good thing, you measure the first. They say that the first impression is the lasting impression. Yeah. So if you want to measure a good thing, you measure the first year. So you've done it 8 years, and you can't do it. You're not guaranteed that you can do it any much better after that. But this conversation, even in the US, it is still alive. In fact, before he left office, Trump himself said that he would like to change the constitution and serve for more than 14 years. He said that. Before that, at his exit, Bill Clinton felt that he was still very young. He would have served for more years. 1989, Reagan also said, I think this term limit is something that should not be entertained in our constitution, that you promised to look at it. And so having this convention is right, yes, because it happens everywhere, including the US, where we've borrowed our constitution from. But then looking at Kenya,
that's not really true.
Looking at Kenya,
let him finish.
Looking at Kenya,
yeah,
and looking at 20 months into the presidency of William Ruto and the Kenya Kwanza administration, and you try and find what tangible achievements, and you don't seem to see them. I mean, at least for me. And Willis has given a very bad prediction that tomorrow's life will be worse than today.
Yeah.
And that is a feeling among Kenyans. And so no one wants to entertain this conversation because we think it is misplaced. Mm-hmm. It is coming at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And that if there was ever an assessment about our president, it is after he has served his 5 years. Mm. Then probably you would say, okay, let's give him another 5 years, if he deserves it.
Okay.
But then going on national radio and saying 25 years and you don't even vote in Kenya, that guy doesn't vote in Kenya. Okay. He's an alien.
Probably has multiple nationalities.
He's a foreigner. I can assure you during election he goes to India. That I can assure you. They all do that anyway.
Or Canada.
Or Australia. I think he was playing to the gallery.
Okay.
And I must disclose that I know him.
Yeah.
But then his character is not that type. He's normally a very quiet person, cool, collected, and very focused. But saying that on national TV, I think he was excited in the heat of West Pokot.
Okay.
And looking at the regalia that the entertainers were wearing, he got excited and thought he would rather be there for 25 years.
Okay. Joe, what are your thoughts on this? Because he's not the only one who said it. That's why I'm trying to move this conversation from Narendra himself. It's just a conversation that has been there because Fafi, Member of Parliament, is actually the one who started it some times back.
How many years did Fafi, Member of Parliament, suggest?
5 years. An extension. He just said an extension, about 7 years actually. He was suggesting a review of the constitution.
Can I just say something before maybe Mwesh comes in?
Yeah.
You see, I don't know whether, Trevor, you might remember when we did the Punguza Mizigo Constitutional Amendment Bill, our proposal was that we reduce the 2-term limits to 1 term of 7 years.
Yes.
And that 7 years, because we did an analysis, we figured out that the first term, because of this 2-term limit, the first term, the first 2 years, the president normally plays politics, either of coalition, getting people here and there, to work together with him. That's why now we can say the president controls parliament because he has managed to compromise even the opposition, except a few individuals like Manduku here. So those 2 years. Now, even right now, as you can see, the jostling. And then, of course, now, even before going to work, really, they already start talking about the next election.
Yeah.
So the president, I think ideally only in the 2-term limits that we have now only works for 1 year because the last 2 years is campaign period. Although this one has already started campaigning, he has not stopped. So and of course we also related the 2-term limits to actually theft of public money. It's the last 2 years when we lose a lot of money because it is money meant for re-election.
Yeah.
And therefore, for me, the extension is based on what? This is a question that maybe Mheshimiwa Nyutu can try and help us answer because he is on that other side. When this conversation is being undertaken, what really informs it?
Yeah.
Are there like some major achievements that we can say, you know, we don't want to lose this president? I know, for example, in Rwanda, Rwandese people themselves say, no, we still want Kagame because, you know, we still feel we have not recovered from the 1994 genocide.
Yeah.
But we also seen where he has taken the country in terms of certain policy decision and all. And they feel there is fear that if somebody else comes, it might not continue.
Yeah.
But the other question, Trevor and Mheshimiwa Nyutu can talk about this. You know, as African people, we have also departed so much from our own ways of governance.
Yeah.
In traditional Africa, I know I'm not probably the wisest of people to speak about this, but I know there was something called succession planning where even wazees, once they reach of a certain age, they will allow the young, the energetic, to take over and look after the community. Why is it that we cannot transplant that value of governance from our own existential locations as traditional people to now politics?
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Succession planning. So why can the president say, I am grooming so-and-so
to
succeed me because he believes in the same ideologies as me? And this thing of trying to, I have to stay for long, there's no magic about it. We've seen examples of Akina Mugabe overstaying. Look at how they ended up. You've seen our neighbor Museveni, now what he's doing. He's becoming, the state is almost becoming his personal chattel property. He puts his daughter in central bank, his son in charge of the army, his wife, Minister Suji, I think education or what, have even lost count. So the state is likely to become a chattel, private property. And that's why the limits, presidential limits are very key.
Okay. Nyutu.
Thank you. Trevor, I think the first thing that I want to say is that the president himself has not expressed any interest or desire.
But he has not denied.
Please give me my time.
Yes.
I'm a very disciplined person. Even when you give me my opportunity and Daktari wants to drop in a word, so I think I would request them to also give me my time.
Okay.
The president has not indicated in any way whatsoever that he is interested in doing a third term should he win a second term. And so when the Fafi Member of Parliament raised that issue, I think it was his own opinion, and I think the president responded at that time, and he said that his major occupation as of now was to see that the quality of life of Kenyans improved, to serve Kenyans in this term that he has been given. And so I think let us not draw the president into this particular debate because he has not expressed any interest in that. And these are people speaking independently. Trevor, there's a reason why Section 2A was repealed. And that is what gave in to I think multipartism. And that is when we introduced now term limits of 2 terms. There were reasons, and I don't think that on our side of Kenya Kwanza that we have this plan of changing the presidential term limits. So these are people who should be taken as people who are expressing their opinions, and an opinion that does not have the support of Kenya Kwanza. However, I think for me that is not even a debate that would worry me, because the president will still have to face the electorate anyway, even if there were not going to be term limits. So the electorate still have the democratic right and power to decide whether a president will continue in office or not. So I think that is not something that would overly, worry me, because at the end of the day, the electorate still have the power of the vote to discontinue a president if they feel that the president is not serving their interests. Why, again, people should not worry about such sentiments by these people? It's not the first time this thing is being said. You remember Atwoli once said that Uhuru was too young to retire. And everybody thought that the former president had plans to extend his stay in office. But when the results were announced, and His Excellency, the president, now William Ruto, was announced as winner, President Uhuru handed in over the instruments of power.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but at that time, there are many people who thought that Atuoli was speaking, was a mouthpiece of the president.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing that is happening about this Narendra guy.
Yeah.
He's another Atuoli for me. I don't think that that he's speaking for the president.
Yeah.
And although because Dr. Ekuru said that he's the chief and the main supplier of steel to the building affordable housing. If it were in Parliament, then we would have required him through the Speaker to table evidence to that effect, because I think it's just a matter of hearsay. Probably you can ask him when he comes here next time to bring evidence that he knows that this guy is the only supplier.
Okay.
But I think this guy, like I've said, is another Atuoli. But just allow me to say a few things.
Yeah.
Because Dr. Aukot has asked, what has President Ruto done? I can mention a few things quickly. Dr. Ruto has employed 56,000 teachers in a record 1 year. Something that has not been done before.
What ethnic?
Something that has not been done before, Trevor, because we must give credit where it is due.
Yes.
Dr. Ruto, when he came into office, Trevor, he found a very restless community of parents about CBC. Because he's a responsive president, what he did very fast was to appoint what we call the Presidential Working Party on Educational Reforms, which settled the issue of where junior school was going to be domiciled. Because every other parent, about 95%, actually didn't want a junior secondary to be domiciled in secondary schools.
Yeah.
That is an achievement that His Excellency the President achieved within the very first months of his rule, Trevor, and we must give credit where it is due. The Hustlers Fund has been implemented, and people are borrowing, and this is true. People are borrowing. They may not be borrowing millions, but they are borrowing, and this is something that is transforming their lives, especially hustlers, and this is something that Dr. Ruto has done. So you cannot ask what has Dr. Ruto done in the 1.5 or so years that he's been in office. Then this affordable housing, Trevor, if you go, there are so many young men on site.
Okay.
You know, engineers, masons, all people that are all that come into building are there. So there are many things that His Excellency the President has achieved over the last 1.5 years.
Okay.
So you cannot ask what has he done.
Let me just say this.
Yes.
The most important thing that we should ask Senator is very simple.
Yeah.
To give us the sum total of William Ruto in the last 2 years. Has the lives of Kenyans improved or retrogressed? Are more Kenyans employed or unemployed? Pure and simple.
Is food on the table?
Is there food on the table or more people are hungry? And the net result in any conversation is that he has failed. Kenyans are poorer today than they were yesterday, despite his intervention. What he's telling us, what he's telling us are interventions that he has sought to do. And we are saying those interventions, in terms of their outcomes, have failed. The healthcare system in this country has collapsed. That's the most important
crisis
thing.
all over.
There's a health crisis.
All right.
The food security has collapsed. His own hallowed project of fertilizer has failed. You are talking about school system. You determine school at the point of marks. In the last marks, when they were released, it was an outcry. Marks were being awarded like piki ponki. You didn't know what you were going to get. JSS transition from primary to JSS has never been addressed until today. You have JSS schools where you have one teacher qualified attending to almost 200 students. Now primary school teachers who are not trained on JSS are the ones going there to offer a first aid to the students. And that is telling us you've employed more teachers. Everything that this man has touched, let's speak the truth. He has tried, but his best is an E for effort for himself and his cabinet.
Okay, a good 1 minute.
Okay, I just zero in on one thing. Yes, you have employed teachers.
Yeah.
The truth for the matter out there is that their salaries are even delayed.
They are paid 18,000. In fact, they are only paid 18,000 Kenya shillings. So, they are not employed teachers. They are employed interns earning 18,000 Kenya shillings. So you must speak the truth that he has not employed 56,000 teachers. He has given internship opportunity to 56,000 people, paying them 18,000 Kenya shillings.
1 minute.
So I think Mwesh is misunderstanding one point here. That he is taking us back to the manifesto of UDA of Kenya Kwanza. We'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do that. That's fine. Everybody has a plan. I think the fundamental question, Mwesh, you have not answered here is what really is the outcome of those plans? Even what you talk about the ASLA fund. Yesterday I was actually speaking to a taxi driver. I told me, I borrowed 800, but I've never paid and I will never pay. Because, and he said, this is our money anyways. They are stealing it. We can see, you know. What is the source of the ASLA fund? The housing, affordable housing. There is even no formula on how those houses will be redistributed. You're talking about affordable housing and an economy that is actually collapsing, if it hasn't collapsed. People without no power of purchase. So this is all a joke. You know, you're frustrating farmers out there with a view to maybe giving this affordable housing so that they can release their land to the globalists. I mean, Mwesh, we're talking about an outcome. An outcome ought to be a positive result on how society has changed for better. That hasn't happened.
1 minute.
If you want to go back to your excuse of give us time, it's okay. We can give you time. You know, because that's your kind of excuse.
Let me say this to my good friend Senator Ruto. I think when someone tells you that you're not doing well, it doesn't mean that you'll not do well. It's probably telling you, hey, wait a minute. Retrace, retrack, and then approach with a different strategy. And I think when we say these things, it's because we are in touch with the people who elected us from the ground. My people of Nyaribari Masaba constituency have not had their lives improved at all. That I can tell you. Whether it is through agriculture output, whether it is through employment opportunities. Yes, people have been employed, but it is skewed. I mean, you saw what KRA did the other day. 2 tribes take 60% of the jobs. Then you tell us you're employing people? Yeah, you're employing 2 tribes. So let us be factual, and let us be real. And remember, this is our country, all of us new to. You're a senator today, tomorrow you could be president. I know you're pushing for somebody else, but you can also be president tomorrow. And you should know how to deal with these factors. And the more you perpetuate this, the more you isolate yourselves from the rest of the country. And that is what we are saying.
All right. You too.
I think, Trevor, although I know they will say that these are tired arguments, but when you talk about a failed healthcare system, just because doctors are on strike, please, we must remember that the CBA that the doctors are talking about was signed in 2017. This is not a creation of Kenya Kwanza administration, and that is a fact.
No. I mean, Trevor, let's be no. Let's agree. Government. No, let's agree. There are basics. There's what we call basic. There's what we call basic. But you can't allow misleading where when it comes to factual issues. The point is this: factual issues about CBA, government succession. Whatever government has come into. I just want to say this. No. What I'm simply saying. What I'm saying is this.
Let him finish.
I just want to put on context that there's what we call state succession.
Okay, fine.
You cannot start by saying that we will not be bound by what was done by a previous government. That's what he's getting to.
Of course, I didn't say that. What I said is they are talking about a failed health system because doctors are on strike. And they are attributing that to Kenya Kwanza. Then I'm just pointing out the fact, pointing to them out the fact that the CBA was signed in 2017. And that is a fact. So you cannot, since 2017, there was a whole term under the presidency of Uhuru Kenyatta. So that's what I'm saying. Of course we know the position that the current president as deputy president, he did not have any power in the second term. But let us not get there now. So healthcare system, this is something that, of course, there is a problem now. Doctors are on strike. And I do not sit here to say that the current government should not sort out or should not implement what was signed then. What I'm saying is there are some problems that are inherited, and that is a fact.
Yeah.
And they must be given time. I mean, if it was not sorted out in 5 years by the previous administration, why do you want it to be sorted out in 1.5 years under all these debt management and all these things? Then when they say that JSS, they talk about the 56,000 teachers. They say that this is not an effort because they are being paid 18,000. Why didn't the previous administration employ those call them interns? Why did the government did not make an effort, the previous administration, to employ even at least interns, even pay them 10,000? I mean, this is an effort that has been made, and it is something that these teachers are serving in schools. Of course, yes, maybe their remuneration needs to be improved with time, but it is an effort that has been made to sort out the teacher shortage in schools. You cannot say that that is not an achievement. Of course, when you say that JSS has never been resolved, I think it was resolved. It will be domiciled in the current primary schools, but of course, we admit that the teachers are not enough, and that is why 56,000 have been employed. This year, another 20,000 teachers will be employed.
Okay.
And I mean, we are sorting out the mess.
All right.
Give me 10 seconds.
With time,
okay.
Trevor.
So
food security,
okay.
Nobody here doesn't live here. They live here.
Right.
And they know the issues that we have had about food, food security has been about some failed rains for about 4 consecutive seasons.
All right.
Even before this government came into power.
10 seconds. 10 seconds.
And I'll also ask for
First of
time
all,
to...
I'm actually disappointed in Senator Ruto that he does not understand how government operates or succession in government. You cannot come here on national television and lie to Kenyans that whatever the previous government did, the current government cannot take over. Government is in perpetuity.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
And secondly,
that.
you've not, because yes, you accepted, but the explanation is excusing it. Secondly, William Ruto, Kimani Ichung'wah, kwanza he was the chair of a budget committee for 8 years. Ndindi Nyoro and all those people, Kina Duale and the rest,
yes,
they were part and parcel of the Jubilee government.
All right.
Uhuru was not a dictatorship.
All right.
Yeah,
Gentlemen, thank you so much for making time. We have to leave it there. Thank you very much. We've run out of time. Coming up next is Cooking Tips. All right, bye for now.